Ambassador, welcome to 7:30.
Happy to be here.
Could you just start by describing the impact on the Ukrainian people of these past 12 months?
The impact has been devastating. We've seen over 14 million people who are dislocated, displaced. Many have left the country. Many had to leave their homes. Lots of people got killed. Huge damage to the civilian infrastructure, and and also the psychological trauma. The what's happening, how it is affecting the entire society. We'll still have to learn it in the future.
Now, we were somewhat taken aback by President Biden's sudden trip, as far as we were concerned, to Kyiv earlier this week. What was the significance of that visit?
It was crucial. It was extremely important. It was very well received in Ukraine, but also globally. President Biden has stood strongly with Ukraine. He traveled to Kyiv, and he made a very good point that democracy and freedom is what it's worth fighting for.
Now, at the same time, does Ukraine fear a fracturing in support in the US along political lines? We've heard a lot from the Republicans, lots of questions being asked. Do you fear that that is what will happen? You will lose support from the Republicans, and especially if they regain the presidency?
And I think when we often talk about resilience in this war, we talk about Ukrainian resilience, but we should be also talking about the resilience of the international community. And international community and the free world has surprised Vladimir Putin by being united, being together, and actually sending material support for Ukraine. And I think that's been phenomenal. We'll hope it will stay like that.
What difference does it make for a small country making a smaller contribution like Australia? What difference can that make to a conflict as intense as this?
Historically, during the World War I, World War II, Australia has always been demonstrating greater strengths than its size or status would dictate. And I think now it's a unique opportunity for Australia to have its greatness shine bright again, because I think it's an opportunity to help defend democracy. And I think that's one of those opportunities which Ukraine is offering. And I often get this question when this war is going to end. But I think the right question is, what can we do to help Ukraine win? What can we do to help defend democracy?
At the same time, of course, that is the question being asked at the moment. How do we find an end to this conflict? You know, the Russian army, while not victorious, has not disintegrated either. And Putin, although there was some hope early on that he would be replaced somehow, he has not been replaced. So how do you see this coming to an end?
Look, I think the good question is that we continue with that support. And what we are talking here, that each Australian Bushmaster is more than just a hardy and handy protected vehicle. It's actually the Anzac spirit, it's the Australian mateship. And this is what is saving lives, what is helping Ukraine win. But it's more than that. What's important in military aid is that it's systematic, it's substantive, and it's consistent. So I think it also must be goal-oriented. And the goal is very clear. If the goal for last year was to defend Ukraine, for this year is for us to win for the world's sake.
And can you win this conflict without, for example, acquiring fighter jets? I know that there are various discussions underway in Europe to acquire those jets, and in the US. Can you win without acquiring fighters?
Fighter jets will play a major role in us winning this war. And we've seen how multiple rocket launchers, how long-range missiles and air defense systems, as well as tanks, will be playing a major role in that. And I think it's important for our governments, for Ukrainian government, working with other governments, including Australia, on a plan for next 12 months. So what assistance is coming, what our men and women who are there in the trenches, what they can expect to get. Because I think that's a unique opportunity for all of us to get united, to defend democracy and defeat dictatorship.
When we think about what's to come in the months ahead, is it possible that accession to the European Union with some security guarantees for Ukraine could be a way for the conflict to end without Ukraine regaining every inch of lost territory?
It's up to Ukraine to actually decide what we're going to do. We're not ready to compromise for any piece of land, and it's actually not the goal of Russia. The goal of Russia is to destroy Ukraine's sovereignty. It's not about the land in Ukraine. We have to keep it in mind. Also, it's important to restore the international rules-based international order, the respect for the UN Charter. This is what we are fighting for. We cannot let other countries to change borders by force. And it's only up to the Ukrainian people to decide what we're going to do with our land. We will not. There is no compromise here, and there won't be any compromise on this particular case.
I just wonder if there's a point at which, given the immense difficulties faced by your people, that becomes a debate in the country. What is an end that we could live with?
Look, if you ask Ukrainians how they feel, and I've been to Ukraine 4 times since I arrived in Australia, I think 98% of people believe we're going to win. And they're united as never. Despite all the atrocities, despite the war crimes, what they've seen, they've been united. And we believe we need to liberate Ukrainian land from the Russians. Eventually, we'll have to get everybody accountable for those war crimes and have them pay for the damage done. And of course, we all look forward to moving towards the European Union. Also, I'd like to thank Australian government for the leadership, and I'd like to thank Prime Minister Albanese for making that trip to Ukraine in July, for standing strong with Ukraine, for sending that support. And I look forward to working with the Australian government on the plan for the next 12 months and what could come and how we can make this plan and make it consistent.
As well as Joe Biden's visit this week, we had Vladimir Putin's speech. We also had a meeting between the Chinese and Vladimir Putin. What kind of a difference could an increase in Chinese activity in the conflict make? What are you afraid of that the Chinese could bring to the Russian side?
We're urging China to use their leverage on Russia to withdraw from Ukraine to end this war. We have good relations. We've had good relations with China. China was a big trading partner for us, and we believe it's not in the interest of China for this war to go on. So we call on China to use its leverage to end this war.
One last point. At the beginning of the war, as we said earlier, I think the world underestimated Ukraine. What is it about the Ukrainian people that we missed, that we didn't understand when this conflict began?
It's an existential war for us. If we don't fight at the end of Ukraine, if Russians stop fighting at the end of the war. So for us, it's a resistance. And I think that was willingness to fight defending democracy, human rights, values, defending our identity. It was very important. This is something that everybody underestimated. It turned out that all people, Ukrainians, are united. As in your report now, half of those people spoke Russian there. But if you ask them who they are, they would tell you for sure they're Ukrainians. And they don't want any Russia there. They were free there to speak any language they wanted, for instance. But they all have very strong Ukrainian identity. And I think this is what Putin has underestimated and what nobody expected from Ukraine, to get united and to fight the dictatorship, to fight this imperialism from Russia and be out there willing to die.
Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.